Good afternoon and welcome to the joint webinar organized by the British Bulgarian Business Association together with our brand new member Ironbridge Associates. The topic we are bringing to you today is business science. My name is Desislava Miteva and I'm the Executive Director of the British Bulgarian Business Association. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Actually, what our panelists have promised me today is to teach us how to turn challenges into opportunities. I'm sure all of you would agree that 2020 was a year full of challenges. 2021 promises to be interesting as well. So I'm looking forward to learning from Ironbridge how to turn challenges into opportunities. Before I introduce to you our panel of speakers, I have to say that I tried to count the accumulated years of experience we have on the panel today, and I counted up to 100 and then I stopped. So we have today probably the most experienced panel of speakers for quite a long while. I would also like to share with you that in 2020, in 21, we have 6 sponsors who are supporting the British Bulgarian Business Association on an annual basis. And I would like to thank them because without them, such webinars and live events wouldn't be possible. Thank you to Deloitte, Athlon, Cleves, Landmark, Bulgarian Insurance, and Novotel. Very quickly, I will go through the webinar basics. I'm sure by now all of you are quite experienced with webinars. However, it's a good reminder. For all the attendees, know that the chat will be disabled. If you want to ask a question, raise your hands or put the question in the Q&A panel. All questions will be reviewed by our panelists and they will be answered towards the end of the presentation. Note that if we have too many questions and we don't have enough time, we will keep track of the questions and our panelists will respond to you afterwards in writing, but hopefully we will have sufficient time for discussion today. The webinar will be recorded, so don't worry about taking too many notes. We will be able to share with you the recording of the webinar after we finish. And here we go to the speakers. We have the 2 managing partners of Ironbridge Associates with us today, Richard Newland and Jerome Santera. Richard has over 30 years of experience at director level in the UK banking sector and within international commercial businesses. He has established, managed and developed frontline cross-border operation centers, contact centers and delivery networks within complex organizational structures. We will also hear from Jerome Santera, who also has over 30 years of experience in the finance and technology sectors, both as a business owner and management consultant. He has held the role of CEO, achieving dynamic, rapid growth in organizations which supply technology solutions to blue-chip companies. We also have 3 directors from Ironbridge today with us. We have Jessie Pavlova and Maria Temelkova joining us from Sofia, Bulgaria, while the rest of our panelists are joining us directly from the UK. Jessie Pavlova is the Director of Process Transformation. She has over 25 years of experience leading complex global finance solutions. She spent the last 10+ years in the BPO sector where she led business and process transformation projects. She worked for IBM for 7 years, delivering services for global client accounts, and she has strong expertise in automation, delivering solutions across countries. We will also hear from Maria Temelkova, who is heading the HR and training practice at Ironbridge. She has over 14 years of experience in the staffing industry, leading developing teams, delivering services to sectors that include IT, finance, and business process outsourcing. Her experience includes key account management, team management, skills training, and the development of full recruitment process outsourcing solutions. Last but not least, we will hear from Harvey Ellams, who is the Director of IT and Cybersecurity at Ironbridge. Harvey is a former digital forensics lead with the UK Metropolitan Police. He is a recognized expert in the cyber and information security and has developed a portfolio of innovative tools to identify, analyze, and prevent cyber and data crime. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to Richard, who will introduce the company, and then we will hear about turning challenges into opportunities. Richard, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Desi. So first of all, let me welcome you all on behalf of Ironbridge and certainly the team that we have on the webinar today. As background to Ironbridge, as Desi has said, between us we have well over 100 years of experience, and some of us have the grey hair to prove that. But our experience has very much been gained in hands-on roles, working up through operations and through delivery functions. So we've all as a team come up, we've done the sort of roles that we're now advising our clients on how to transform, how to improve, and we've used a lot of the early versions and now are taking the knowledge from early versions of software tools and techniques, and as a team we're looking at the market for new innovative solutions that we know from our hands-on experience can actually bring real benefits to people. So we as a team see ourselves very much as practitioners delivering outcomes, and outcomes that are aligned to the needs of our clients. And as it says on the slide here, we deliver our solutions in 5 stages, and we'll talk about this more as we go through the webinar today and our subject. But very much we don't come in thinking we know the answers. We come in with the experience that we have. We assess the situation that a client has to understand the client, understand their issues, their challenges, their ways of working, and then based on that we develop the solution in partnership, we deliver it, and then we stay around. We actually look to be part of the team that stabilizes and then optimizes the solution. So we don't see ourselves as a team that come up with an idea and move on. We see ourselves very much as working in partnership with our clients. So our core services are around process transformation, people development, and the data security and the IT that goes along with it. Our domain experience, as it says on the slide here, is actually very, very broad, and we've gained a lot of this with small companies and large. A lot of us have worked with IBM. We've worked with clients such as Xerox, PepsiCo, BP, a variety of big names, but we've also worked with a lot of smaller companies that are very much beginning their journey, and we can take learnings from our past experience to support them. So that's a sort of a very quick run through of who we are. And moving on from who we are to obviously the important part for today, which is what's our agenda? What are we going to be talking to you about? And the first thing we're going to cover is challenges and opportunities. So to sort of define how we see challenges and relate it to the challenges that we're all facing in today's world. And then to look at how we can overcome those challenges, and that's where the business science comes in. So what we will do is we'll take you through a definition of business science. We'll talk about how it's applied, and we'll talk about the benefits that it can drive, and we'll do that looking at process intelligence, data security, technology, and people. Then we'll move on from there to say, okay, so using business science, what are the steps required to drive successfully to tomorrow's solution today? And then, having talked about that, we'll take a couple of real life examples to say, well, okay, this is how you can turn these opportunities into reality. So between us as the team on the call, we'll take you through this. But before we start that, we actually thought it would be a good idea to perhaps have an icebreaker and just get a little bit of feedback from you, which we'll come back to at the end of the presentation, and sort of feedback on the results and relate that to what we've been talking about. So if I hand over to my colleague Jessie at this point. I think you're on mute, Jessie.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, so so the idea of this ice breaking is actually, as Richard said, to gather a bit more feedback from you. And the questions that you see are quite important as well for us to understand what's your perception around what the expectations from the webinar, what's your perception about your bigger challenges from the past, extremely different to any of the other years, 2020, and what would be your understanding of the business science in general. So we'll give you some time, like a minute or two, to answer. You can answer with multiple answers, so you have multiple choices on each one of the questions, and then we can discuss the results. And at the end of the presentation, once we run through the whole content, see whether we have reached your expectations or not, but hopefully yes, and cover any questions. So that will be during the Q&A session. So now, if you please, as participants can really answer to these questions. I suppose that you see all of them. And you can pick up whatever answer you like. You can click submit and we'll have your answers. As you know, this participation is really anonymous, so don't worry if some of you are feeling uncomfortable releasing the names, but that's fine. So let me just give you a minute to. Okay, I think pretty much we're done here. All right. Okay. So these are the results, but I think we can really go through the results together during the Q&A session, because I think it's a matter of just having that dialogue. We are searching all the time when we talk with audience, and in our practice that makes a lot of sense, instead of just literally like a monologue to make a comment on the results. So thank you very much for your submission. We'll come back to that. So Georgi, if you can close that, and now give it over to Richard for a start.
Okay, thank you, Jessie. So if we look now at challenges versus opportunities, our first slide. So a challenge, I think we're all familiar today with the challenges that the current world pandemic has thrown up. Challenges have always been there. We've always had challenges. It's just that at the time you don't want a challenge, three come along together. And challenges are tests. They test our resolve. They present us with something to be overcome. One challenge is better than two, and two is better than three. But we all know from bitter experience in our working lives that you can't predict how many are going to come, and you can't control. Just when you think everything's running smoothly, a new challenge pops up. So a challenge is something to be overcome, and it's going to test our knowledge. And it's often going to require collaboration, because nobody has all the knowledge they need to overcome a challenge. Nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. But what we have to do is take a challenge as a positive and say it is an opportunity. It's a situation where we can bring together skills, we can acquire new skills, we can acquire new services, and we can build a solution to overcome the challenge. So I think the third bullet here is really the key one, is that a challenge is an opportunity to learn. And on that basis, we all need to push ourselves forward. So we shouldn't be scared of challenges. We just need to know how to overcome them and where to look for the help to actually do so. And if we then say, okay, so what are the typical challenges that we're all dealing with today, then if we look at that, we say, well, okay, operating models. In today's world, we know that continuing with pre-existing operating models isn't going to work, and it hasn't worked. And we might have had plans to redevelop and change our operating models, but we weren't planning perhaps to do it as quickly as we've needed to. We all, a year ago, thought we had business continuity plans that presented alternative ways of working. Might not have been a new operating model, but it was an alternative way. But now we found as we came into the pandemic, that not only did existing operating models not give us the comfort and the security that we needed, but even our BCP plans to overcome challenges that were thrown up into those operating models weren't going to work. So we needed new tools and technologies, and we needed to rapidly change. Communication strategy has been another challenge, because again, traditional ways of connecting between clients and our staff just wasn't going to work. As we've said here, we've needed to bring in video conferencing, new workflow systems, and off the back of that, having so many people working remotely, as many of us do, it throws up cybersecurity challenges. So our interaction needs to be on a completely different level with our customers and with our workforce. And then in terms of customer relationships, well, we know customers are all facing the same challenges, so they've got the same issues, and equally we obviously, to reach them, need to come up with new ways of talking and communicating to them, and recognizing that their needs have changed as well. So they need to adapt, we need to adapt. It's a world that's thrown similar challenges to all of us. And then we have our workforce, our teams. Human nature says that face-to-face interaction is very important in terms of the way we work with and retain our teams. Well, again, that's been something that's been challenged very severely at the moment. More people working remotely, and a completely different tool set needed to make sure that their needs are met, and that we're able to understand those needs and work with them and communicate with them. And also, very importantly for the business, to be able to drive the interaction we need to enable them to do their day-to-day jobs within the operating models that we have and that we've had to move towards. Then we have a challenge around what we've called adaptive intelligence, and that is really that's the ability of a business to change. And again, traditionally, human nature says people don't like change. I've seen so many projects where people have gone away to come up with a better way of doing something and end up coming back presenting the way they've done things for the last 5 years using different words and maybe one or two different tools, but not really pushing change forward because people are nervous of change. So this adaptive intelligence, the ability to adapt to the evolving business requirement, is something that has to be encouraged, and has to be seen as good and not a bad thing. So people to embrace change. So that again has been the fifth challenge that we wanted to highlight. And then turning those challenges into opportunities, well, that's where business science comes in. So I guess the next thing we need to do is define, if business science is going to link challenges and opportunities and drive us towards the future, what is business science? So we've given you a definition here of how we see business science. And if I just read this, and we can see that we would describe it as the use of analytic methods, processes, systems, education, and machine learning to discover patterns, trends, and relationships in activities and data. Simplified, that is, business science is how we understand the issues and how we can start to see the path forward to overcome those issues. So it identifies opportunities to enhance, as we've said here, customer experience, revenue opportunities, embracing innovation. It's the tool that we can use to find the path forward. And therefore, based on that, it's the foundation which really drives key words here: adaptability and resilience. And resilience, I guess, probably even over adaptability, if I had to pick a word, is one that I see as the real core benefit that we get from business science, because we've all seen how pre-existing operating models didn't work. We know we need to change. We have changed. We are changing. But change isn't going to go away, and that's where the resilience comes in. And we would see, certainly in Ironbridge, that building resilience into our solutions is absolutely critical. So before I hand over to Jesse to take us a little bit more through the benefits of business science and what it can actually deliver, I just sort of leave you at this point with the thought that people, processes, data, and technology, they're the four key dimensions in business science that we're going to be working with to drive the level of change and resilience that we need to drive to tomorrow's solution today. Jesse.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, so continuously in this direction to think about. Let me talk today for what does it mean process intelligence and how Ironbridge helps in that. But I would like rather first of all to start with what Gartner has identified in one of their reports published last year. So they said organizations can lower their operational costs by 30%, combining hyper-automation technologies with redesigned operational processes. So that's a very interesting statement, and that's a very true statement. But behind that stays exactly what does it mean hyper-automation, and what does it mean redesigned operational processes. And that's actually on the background of what does it mean to run process intelligence in your organizations. So what Ironbridge has identified was really, you have to go back and look at really on your processes and not on the high level. You have to dig down and see what your workforces are doing every day. Are they struggling? Do they know what exactly they're doing? Are there any repetitive tasks? Is everything so efficient and could not be done anything more? Do you have really existing process documentation that helps them to run and execute the processes? Do you ensure compliance following all the regulations? Can you maintain all the components in one process? So that's process assessment. If you go down and drill really to the bottom of it, will help you at the end to save more than 50% of your time when you start in saying, okay, this is what I've got today, but this is where I want to go into the future. So in order for you to to take the line and to draw the equation, you really have to go back to your process assessment, but not on a high level, guys. No, going down to the very bottom, talking with each one of your employees and engage them, include them, involve them to talk about how they're struggling, where the pain points are. So that will help you. So that's the first step. So then once you've done that, then you can say, okay, what I'm going to do. Do I have to invest in too many tools, technologies? Actually, last year, a lot of research has shown that more than 50% of the companies, they were really running to implement any tools, automation, etc. But is that smart? Is it really what the business needed? So you have to be absolutely clever how you're going to use the technologies today. There are a lot of tools, there are a lot of options to implement RPAs, to add artificial intelligence, machine learning. But is this now the time for your organization? And actually, when you do the assessment on the processes, you can answer to that question to yourself. So to avoid the fact that and really a big percent, like 65% of the companies are not receiving the expected rate of return on their investments, you need to be absolutely clear where exactly, when, and how you're going to leverage your automation and your technology landscape together with your existing resources, because the technology is not actually replacing your resources. And that's quite key. And one of my colleagues later will talk about the fact how that actually impacts the culture in the organization. But you have to be absolutely on the right spot, using your workforce smartly and your technology smartly. And that will give you 30% of really saving of your time of execution of the processes. Then what remains? Remains your governance, remains your control, it remains how your organizational structure looks like, it remains how you're managing your business. Then by the end of the day, if you do that, and if you do it really clever, you'll be having quite efficient processes, you'll be running very effectively your business, and you'll reach the results you want to reach. Then you can say, right, okay, so I've got my processes much more intelligently executed than it was in the past, right? So that's quite important to understand exactly what does it mean, process intelligence. Understand your processes, use as much as possible tools, but when it's needed, think about that before you do and invest your money, and then construct your governance, your structure, your control framework in the organization and run it through. But at the end of it, engage your people. So that is a topic my colleague Maria will cover later on, but people are not replaced by robots, not by artificial intelligence. They're the ones that needs to drive the intelligence part of your processes. So now that's the piece about the processes, and I'm giving the control over to Harvey, who will run through the data and security part. Harvey.
Afternoon, everybody. So what we're going to talk about today is the third generation cybersecurity. Everybody is very familiar with first generation cybersecurity. That's your antivirus, firewalls, SIEM tools, etc. Second generation is sandboxing technology. What we have here is a third generation technology. Now, the way this works is it assumes every single file is malicious. And what it does is it understands that when you want to send an infected file, you have to embed the malware in the metadata of the file. It's not going to be in the content like the words you read or the pixels you look at. It's going to be in the metadata. So what DTE does is it basically creates a blank version of the file. So for example, if someone is sending you via email or you're downloading a PDF, the data transformation engine understands what a PDF is and how to make one, so it makes a blank version of it. It then reads the PDF on the outside and recreates it. So for example, if it's a PDF, it will read the writing and write the writing from looking at it via one-way connection. It then rebuilds that PDF locally. It does this in an instant. It's so quick. So one of the most important bullet point that I want to bring your attention to is the Red Team Challenge, because I can explain how DTE works, and I can tell you that it's 100% against 0 day, and a lot of people think that's too good to be true and won't believe it. These DTE is a technique that was taken from data diaries. These are what we call government and military techniques. These were used to protect top secret organizations. These are now available to you. So like I said, the most important point is the Red Team Challenge. If you don't believe us, we can set up a demonstration where you can collect together your Red Team, all the NASAs they want, and I guarantee it will not get through. We can set it up with an S3 bucket of your choice, and you can take whatever you want. So again, more bullet points, but again, it will recognize the vast majority of file types. If it cannot transform the file, it simply doesn't get through. It gets rejected. In that case, it might be worth bypassing those files via a sandboxing technique. But for the vast majority of your files will be able to be transferred. Common types, documents, PDFs, Excel files, sound files, video files, image files will all be transformed.
Okay. Right. Moving on to the third dimension, and that's about technology. Actually, I have touched point a little bit talking about the processes around the cloud technology. Yes, with today's new environment, cloud technology will be the way to go in the future, right? So a lot of changes. I know that the pandemic situation impacted in every way the life in the organizations, the personal lives, etc. So, but coming back to my point previously said, how clever we are around the technology, how well we understand the technology, how well we see the need of the technology for the business. That's quite critical, because if we are on the right side, then really the technology will enable our business model to be more agile, to be fast responding to the changing environment, to literally from the daily work to focus not on the CapEx, but to focus on OpEx. So all these operational expenses, etc., that definitely could be a big pain point in our financial results at the end of it. To start improving our strategies and to see where the advantages are, to implement artificial intelligence because the business needs, not because the technology is moving on and because everyone is investing in. So that is the critical piece. I was repeating several times on that. To gain the competitive advantage over the industries. So to boost the productivity, giving the employees to focus on much more value-added tasks, and that's the leverage between ML, AI, or whatever abbreviation you can use compared to your workforces. Don't forget about them. They're very much needed, and they're very much hungry, really, to do value-added work. So think about them. And by the end of the day, you get an organization really to know how to use this technology. So Ironbridge is very much focused exactly on all these elements, on these components of how to use the technology. In each one of our solutions, we base the decision for the technology even in only driven by the need for the organization. It's not a matter just to say, hey guys, we have a lot of tools that we can implement. You save a lot of your defects, you erase them, and you have a huge efficiency. No, that's not the way. You have to do it slowly. You have to do it with understanding the business, and always you have to focus on what's the impact on that. So, but these are the main elements. I just said it on that will drive to go to that direction. So that's about the technology. Let's see what's happened with people, and I'm handing this over to Maria.
Thank you, Jessie. So I think that this is more reluctant slide for everyone, since people are not ignored. So just the opposite, people are a really very important part of each science. And honestly, I don't know the science, business science, without any involvement of people. What type of people we need now, or what type of people and skills organizations are looking. So based on McKinsey report, which was recently issued, 10 years now, in 2030, about 14% of the global employers or employees, sorry, or roughly 375 million are basically looking for or need to look for different sectors and occupation. It will be mainly caused by the automation and artificial intelligence tools. So jobs are not disappearing, they are just changing. The landscape for making business is completely different. So again, based on this report, about 66% of surveyed companies consider that upskilling and training opportunities for their employees are going among the top 10 priorities for the business development. And about 30% of the companies are admitting that this will be not top 10, but top 5 priority. So when we talk about tools, technical tools and technologies, yes, it is about hard skills. And again, it's a good combination, a strong combination to these hard and soft skills. So training and upskilling programs are going more as a top-down approach. It starts from leadership trainings, this multitasking improvement of the skills. We are talking about agility, creativity. So how this will change along the time. Let's say leadership is something that will be completely changed according to Gartner report, which was issued for 2020, Reimagine HR Strategy and Employee. Now leadership is more going to manage not the employee experience, but the life experience of people. So we see the last year that most of the leadership and people managers were involved in daily lives of their employees. So it's about taking care of how they feel. It's not only for the professional performance, it's about personal feeling. So what the leadership is going to look at is the balance between the healthcare, talking about the physical and mental healthness of their employees and how they perform. Gender wage is another thing which we'll be bringing up on the table. So how the Gartner is finding that asking employees, are they willing to go back on the workplaces? Mostly men are answering yes, we would rather go back to the offices, and women, not surprisingly, are saying that they would rather stay at home. So this is another thing that will be considered. This is the really gender diversity question that all employers need to ask. When we talk about the right model, obviously the training and upskilling programs are demanding a very fast movement from one level to another. But in order to meet the gaps, most of the employers would rather go and borrow or buy these people, rent demand skills on the market immediately, while they're training and upskilling their own staff. So this is something that will bring up the liquid workforce or skills on demand as a hot topic as well. When we talk about tools, it's interesting that 1 out of 4 companies during the last year was introducing a new tool to track, even passively, the performance of the employees. And it's something which definitely consider as important issue for both sides, from the employers and employees. So employees are kind of frightening from the fact that their movement even and attendance is tracked by the tool, but at the same time employers are trying to reluctant them, saying that this data will be used only for the business purposes. So where is the balance, and how to balance this issue is something that we definitely need to consider and think very carefully. So I think that there are a lot of new training and upskilling programs for creativity. And when we talk when we say how to engage and to involve people remotely, it's interesting fact that IT, let's say software developers, for instance, instead of perceived as a code makers only, they're much more involved nowadays by their organization in the creating solutions. And this is one of the ways that people will be involved and engaged, never mind whether they're working remotely or in the office. So the involvement and taking the regular employee in the decision-making process on, of course, on different level is something that will be quite interesting to be considered. So more or less, there are new impacts and trends coming. And I think that we and Ironbridge can definitely help in first understanding and showing how this can be put in place. People topic is really broad one, and I'm sure that next year and years beyond will be quite interesting to develop. So this is from my side, Jessie.
Okay, thank you, Maria. And now I'm handing this over to Jerome.
Thanks, Jessie. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for taking the time to join us for this webinar. As the team have said, we're excited to tell you about what we're doing and explore how we can help you turn your challenges into opportunities. During the previous slides, Jessie, Maria and Harvey have talked about what I would call components or modules of our solutions and services. But how do we bring the right modules together for a project? How does Ironbridge deliver? And at the start of the presentation, Richard mentioned that there are sort of 5 stages that we use during a project. So assess, develop, deliver, stabilize and optimize. And I think that Jessie used the term agile. So it's a combination of these 2 methodologies that enable us to structure successful projects and enable our clients to achieve their desired goals and therefore create the value proposition. So at the start of the project, or start of a project, we work with our clients to clearly assess their current position. Then we agree on the goals of the project, effectively tomorrow's solution, as Richard mentioned, and then apply our 5-stage methodology as a roadmap, taking sort of stage 1 at a time, or taking 1 stage at a time, and agreeing the right component for the following stage with our clients. So this enables us to utilise our learning from the previous stage and establish exactly what modules should be brought in during the following stage to therefore deliver an agile approach, a clear understanding of the current position and the desired outcomes defined at the start of the programme, then a framework for the stages of the project that enable us to continually ensure we're moving forward in the most appropriate way. So from the slide, you can see the 5 stages and the subcomponents of each stage. The first 3 stages are fairly self-explanatory: assess, develop, and deliver. But it's important to address stability and stabilize and optimize too. I'm sure most of the attendees of this webinar have seen many projects that, in principle, when complete, should be a success, but then seem to fall flat on completion. Once the project team moves sort of moves on to the next project, the outputs and learnings from that cycle are not adopted or are dropped from the working practice. But our project team, as Richard mentioned, remain engaged to ensure that the new ways of working are not only stabilised, but integrated into the working practice, and that users see the benefits of the changes and indeed change their approach to embrace change and themselves contribute to ongoing continuous improvement and optimization. So moving back, or moving, I guess, forward to the next slide, Pretelligence. Before I talk about Pretelligence, I'd just like to draw your attention back to something Richard mentioned earlier, that we're practitioners with an operational background. This is one of 2 key aspects that differentiates Ironbridge from a consultancy practice. The second is that we're a solutions provider. By focusing on the word solutions, we're not talking about software implementation, we're talking about using combinations of software to build a facilitator, using technology to enable us to overcome challenges, specifically with Protelligence, today's challenges. So the problem statement that makes the case for Protelligence is therefore that we know process optimization and standardization is more critical than ever in today's changing environment. But at the same time, that same environment creates blockers. With operations teams split over multiple locations, many employees still working from home, mapping, optimizing, deploying, and training users on business processes through the conventional on-site style of business analysts, work shadowing, work groups, group training sessions, and on-the-job training are no longer an option. So we need to turn this challenge into an opportunity. We need a solution that eliminates the blockers and in addition adds value to the program. So I guess the easiest way for me to tell you how Protelligence solution delivers this is for me to talk through the stages of the program, identifying the blockers and how they're mitigated, and in addition highlighting the benefits. So taking the format of the slide, stage one, discovery. We need to map processes. I mean, Jesse's talked about processes throughout this presentation. We need to map them. We know that, but there are a number of blockers for us doing that. Let's take an operational team. I'm sure now that most operations teams are working at 99% capacity. We don't have time to break out to map processes. I mean, operations teams are now probably challenged meeting SLAs at least. You know, the environment today, we are still committed to delivering service levels. It doesn't matter that the world is changing, service levels remain. So we still have to deliver those. So taking an operations team out for a period of time to try and map processes is a risk to an operations team. It's also not possible to travel at the moment. So business analysts can't interview team members in order to map processes. And many team members are still working from home. So it's not possible to map processes consistently from end to end. So then the Protelligence solution, how do we deal with that? Well, we distribute a small application by email with some self-install instructions. One click and it's installed on a team member's desktop. Then it's a single start stop button to record process execution only. So not continuously capturing a user's desktop, as Maria mentioned earlier when she was speaking. You know, users are apprehensive about being monitored these days, and so we need to make sure that the user realizes that we are capturing processes only. And so the Protelligence tool captures processes and the process execution only, and captures screenshots at a keystroke level. And all recordings are sent directly back to a centralized server, and our algorithms consolidate the individual recordings to create a comprehensive roadmap. So just in that statement, we've overcome the blockers and added value by creating a process map that identifies the happy path and also the deviations. So now our client has full visibility of their as-is process and can immediately identify team members deviating from the happy path and working inefficiently, and also understand the transaction volumes for productivity measurement. So stage two then, moving on, optimization. So what are the blockers to optimizing a process these days? Well, how do the Ironbridge team work in partnership with our clients to optimize a process in the current environment? And how do we ensure we engage all the stakeholders impacted by changes to the process during optimization? So again, back to our Protelligence solution. We have a web-based portal where the map that we created during stage one is stored. Any changes to the map are made within the portal, and the software creates an impact analysis of the changes and also identifies stakeholders responsible for assessing and signing off those changes. So any compliance documentation relating to the stages of the process can also be pinned to the respective steps within the portal. So essentially, we've addressed the blockers that were stopping us, but we've also added value by creating a centralized repository for processes. Plus, we've optimized the client's processes. And in addition, we've addressed the risk of compliance breach. So given that people's processes are currently, quite frankly, blown apart by what's happened over the past number of months, this enables not only our clients to map processes clearly, but it enables our clients to address those newly created compliance risks that have come about over the past year, as well as minimizing the impact on the users who are also trying to deliver a service to service levels. So we've identified the blockers, eliminated the blockers, and created a value add. And I think that's how we try and utilize our tool sets. So just taking some steps more within our intelligence solution. So training, and again, blockers. How do we train users on processes remotely? How can we train users on systems without risks of errors in a live environment? And the intelligence portal that we mentioned has a role-based access. So basically what it means is that the same portal can be deployed across an entire organization. So not only do we deploy it to control the process map optimization, but we deploy it to the team members, and they have access in the specific areas they require. So in this instance, we use screenshots of the process that we recorded during stage 1, and we use those to create video walkthroughs of 2B processes with narratives. And we can also create virtual screen simulations so users can familiarize themselves with the process steps out of the live environment. And in addition, we can add a theoretical guide which trains team members on the non-technical aspects of the process. So for example, do you need to seek authorization to open a new account? All of these are consolidated within the portal into a learning module, which a team member is given access to based on their role. They can therefore remotely train, and when ready, take an online assessment to demonstrate they're proficient in the process. So multiple learning modules could be combined into a learning path, which would be all the processes needed to fully train a new hire. So again, just thinking back to our sort of approach here, we've addressed the blockers. We've also provided a way for organisations to not only remotely train users on new processes, but also remotely train new hires. And in addition, train multiple users on the same process, creating a resource pool should one member be taken out at short notice. And finally, the output will be that we can deploy processes, revise processes, 2B processes, confident that users are proficient, with the additional benefit of using the volumes we captured in the discovery phase to provide a baseline for ongoing measurement of the efficiency gains from the optimization program. And this can also be measured, monitored from within the portal. So I hope my walkthrough has shown how Ironbridge is using solutions to turn challenges into opportunities. I appreciate I've had to go fairly quickly, so I'll be happy to talk more to you guys individually in the days after the webinar.
Okay, thanks, Jerome. I guess, I mean, as Jerome has said, he has shown how we designed the Protelligence tool to take on a challenge and turn it into an opportunity, and in the process use the component parts of business science to do that. And just as a second example, on the slide here, this is a real case where, again, we've used business science to take on the challenge of creating one of the first shared service centers in the Russian market, in one of the Russian territories. And here, you know, we were faced with the challenge that the concept of a shared service center was new. And whilst the desire to learn about shared service centers and the benefits of it were there, we were faced with a workforce and a team that really were used to change being driven by their own leadership top down, but change didn't come that often. So change was still a relatively rare and unusual event, but when it did come, it was their management that brought it. So here was an outside team coming in to deliver change. And obviously we were faced then with some fairly interesting skills gaps. But the project had 5 core challenges that we were asked to overcome. The first one was that, as is often the case with a very distributed workforce and operational structure fragmented across several different cities, there was no standardization. So the client wanted an optimized delivery model and standardized processes so that they could drive data, drive analytics through the information that they could generate through the solution that we delivered. Then all the work was done on different sites, so the technologies and automation that supported the business, that needed to be standardized and tools needed to be identified, and the benefits of those tools needed to be communicated, and this in a market where, again, a lot of the tools as well as the technologies and the working practices were going to be new, so not an insignificant challenge. The agile team mindset, as I've said, change wasn't really a concept that people were used to working with. Certainly they weren't used to driving change themselves. I mean, if anyone was going to tell them that something had to change, it was their management. It wasn't outsiders, and they certainly weren't of a mind that they were going to drive change themselves. So again, another big challenge to overcome. But the business itself knew it needed to change to meet its market needs and the needs of its customers, and very much as we're seeing today, you know, if you're too slow to react, then the market moves away from you. And then finally, control and compliance, really all around data security. That was something that needed to be looked at, both for the data within the business and around site issues as well. So although this is a very early example of business science, I think it's very relevant to the issues that we're facing today and the sort of challenges that we need to overcome when we deliver solutions in today's world using business science. And then my final slide here is, well, how did we set up this centre using business science? What were the key steps? And very much this follows, as Jerome and I have said, the methodology that we use in Ironbridge of assess, develop, deliver, stabilise and optimise. So we had to assess the challenges and identify the opportunities to overcome them. We had to develop the plan, we had to communicate it, we had to, in fact, bring in process leaders who were used to change as cultural ambassadors to drive that plan in the early stages. And of course, in a country like Russia, we had language challenges because when you move below the senior management level, English is not the first language. So we needed to bring in some cases, interpreters. An awful lot of data had to be rewritten so that the Russian team could understand it. But that was all part of developing the solution. And then obviously we delivered that solution and began the transformation process as we did so. So an awful lot of communication with the team, which then led us into working alongside the team to stabilize the new centre. Communicate was the order of the day to achieve the result. But then having got over that and created the change culture, then we were into the optimize, where the real benefits of what was being delivered were available then to not only the client, but also the teams there could see the benefit from themselves, the new opportunities it opened up. And of course, along the way, no point doing this if the customers weren't being served in the way that they needed to be served as well. So quite a big project, but very much one that we've worked on delivering through business science. Okay, so I think that's enough from me probably in terms of slides. And I guess, Jesse, handing back to you and the team in terms of, and I'm conscious of the time now, in terms of questions and answers and sort of next steps and the opportunity moving forward.
Thank you, Richard. So I think one of the sort of a surprises we were thinking to be very valuable for all the participants is exactly the opportunity that we are offering. So we thought that after this discussion today and all the topics we brought on the table, and explaining how we're using the well-known more effectively, or the well-known is the business science. That's the business science for me, by the way. So we thought that it will be very valuable to give you like a 30-minute discussion free of charge if you register, send on the 2 emails on the slide within the next 2 hours, an email with the topic BBBA Business Science Webinar. Will be good if you want to talk with any of us, also to mention the topic that you want to cover, so we can make sure that the right person is with you, like for the technology or from the process perspective, from people perspective, or overall solution perspective, etc. So that's a kind of a gift we thought will be for all of you. So if you think that you need personally to discuss with all of us or some of us, please send an email within the next 2 hours from now on with that topic written on the slide on those 2 emails. Actually, one is for my email, the second one is the Maria's email. So and saying what you want to talk, or overall just to understand what we do. Yeah, so that's your opportunity, so use it. Okay, good. I think we are pretty much ending, so perhaps yeah, Q&A session. I probably need to ask my supporters today, the BBBA team, and my team as well. So do we have any questions? You can raise your hand or something like that. Yeah.
Jesse, I see one question in the Q&A section, and I would encourage all attendees, now is the time to ask questions, so please go ahead and use the Q&A session. Thank you very much to the whole team of Ironbridge for bringing this very intriguing presentation. Here you can see their contacts, but the question I see in the Q&A is, would you advise on a good platform to measure efficiency, and how to pinpoint the most painful process to focus on optimizing?
Okay, so that's a question, if I understand correctly, would we suggest to use a platform where to do that, if I understand correctly?
A platform that is measuring efficiency.
Okay.
It's actually one question, as the way I understand it, one question with 2 parts. The first part says, what would be a good platform to measure efficiency? And then the second question is how to pinpoint the most painful process to focus on optimizing.
Okay, I think I can split that between me and Jerome. Yes, okay. So I'll take the part for the pinpoint. Jerome, if you like, you can go with first about the platform.
Yeah, well, I think, thanks, Jesse. I think, to be fair, what we've just discussed, our Intelligence platform or Intelligence solution is a good way to address both of those points. We can, first of all, I think you need to almost reverse the question. First of all, we need to pinpoint the most painful process, and I think that comes from a user perspective, followed up by mapping the process. So we can map the process, as I've said, using our Intelligence tool. And once we've mapped that process, we can capture some volumetrics while mapping it that we can then measure after we've optimized the process, or effectively, once we've identified the as-is process, we can continually measure certain KPIs to ensure that we understand that the efficiency of that process. So I think potentially, Jessie, we could answer that with the Protelligence solution.
Yes, for sure. But to eliminate the pain points actually is one of the tricky pieces in the whole story, is to understand what the process does by the end of the day. Because, and what actually creates a lot of trouble for all the participants in the process. But you have to involve everyone engaged in this process. So let's say, you have a problem with posting the invoices from accounts payable perspective. You need to look at on the process, not only from the accounts payable perspective in the finance function, of course, but you need to go a bit more broader, include the procurement, include supply chain, include everyone who is involved in this process, in order for you to understand where the problem is and what causes the problem. Mainly is what causes the problem. So the mapping actually will help to identify where is the problem, but then comes the situation to understand what are the defects you have identified, what are the wastes, over processing, too much work, repetitive work, you're engaging too many people, you're waiting too much or whatsoever, or to a big volume. So all these pieces, you have to, all these components, you have to put them like a puzzle once you've mapped them, and then your picture comes. And then easily you can start talking what could be the best part to eliminate, where you need to do automation, where you don't need to do automation, where you have to perhaps including another step or something like that. So process mapping will give you the snapshot, but then you need to dig into each one of the steps and understand why it is there. And what actually Jerome is saying, so that's platform we were talking about Protelligence, gives you the chance to pick up any small and tiny steps that you never actually recognize that your employees are doing it, and that's the interesting part. And that's what I was saying all the time, going deeper into details of the process, not looking on a macro level, looking on a very detailed level, go to the bottom. So then all the pain points will come up, and then the solution, and then the decision will come up easily. So if that answer to the question for both of us, okay. So I would say, guys, if you have more questions, you definitely can send it on those 2 emails as well that you have on the opportunity slide. And definitely you can address it. And definitely I think there will be really continuously discussions, because probably once you digest the whole information, having the presentation with you, you can definitely crystallize areas you want to share with some of us, I suppose. So I'm very much encouraging you to think about, put it on the table, just say it, and we are here to help. Okay.
Thank you so much, Jessie, and big thank you for the whole team. Actually, I think most of the participants probably will take advantage of your generous offer for one-to-one conversations following the webinar. So I would like to thank all of you and just give you the floor for some final words if you want to wrap up.
Probably Richard or Jerome.
I'll pick that one up if you like. Thank you, Desi. I think as Desi said, and as we tried to cover in our presentation, business science brings together a number of topics. I don't think any of them are a surprise or unusual or necessarily new, but it's bringing them together, thinking about them as a package, and driving forward to a more agile and a more resilient solution is really the key. And that's the message we're trying to get across here, is that what we've done and what we can all do together is bring together what we know and our knowledge, and offer solutions to the challenges that we have, and drive to new outcomes, but along the way drive to a resilient outcome that means that going forward, when we're faced with multiple challenges, as I said earlier, challenges don't unfortunately come in ones or twos, they come in 3, 4, 5s and 6s. So in the future, if we can create this more resilient, more change focused, agile business operating environment, then we're going to be able to respond much more efficiently and effectively to challenges. And so if there's a takeaway from, I guess, from today, it's let's look at business science as the enabler that lets us move from tomorrow, from yesterday to tomorrow with agility and resilience, and bring all the components that are underneath the surface, our people, our process and technology along with us. And if we can do that, then we're in a great position to be able to move forward with a lot more certainty, and in a lot more efficient and effective way. So that really is the message from us, and I'd just like to thank you all for your time participating and being part of our webinar here today. We're very pleased to be the new members of the BBBA. We're here to help, and anytime you want to get in touch with us, please do so. We have the offer here right now that you can pick up, I'll say pick up the phone, but go to your laptops and send us an email, and we'll very happily talk to you. But at any time, you know, we're here to help and here to talk. So look forward to talking to you in the future. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
please.
Richard, Jerome, Jesse, Maria, Harvey. It's been a pleasure having you for the past hour and 12 minutes. As part of this webinar, and I think we reached the goal of raising questions. I'm sure a lot of people are formulating them in their heads right now, and they will follow up. Without further ado, I would like to wish you a nice afternoon, and to say how excited I am to see BBBA becoming more and more international. Having members like Ironbridge is great, because we can actually learn from your experiences from all over the world, and it's absolutely amazing how we can bring them over to our members. Thank you for being with us, and looking forward to seeing you soon, hopefully in person.
Thank you
Indeed.
very much,
Thank
Stacey.
you.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you. Bye bye all. Have
Bye-bye.
a lovely evening. Bye.